guys, so now we're going to make goat milk soap. Today I'm making lavender oatmeal goat milk soap, and I've got all my stuff laid out and measured. I used my scale here to measure out everything in ounces. So initially you will have 2-to-1 ratio of your goat milk and lye. I use our milk from our goat Bella. She's a Nubian, and I freeze it because when you mix in the lye, it gets super hot and you don't want to burn your milk, and it will turn like an orange red if it gets burnt. So you need to slowly mix in the lye. I use glass or stainless steel. You do not want to use plastic for anything when you're working with lye or aluminum. It will melt through the plastic, eat through it, and you'll have an adverse reaction with aluminum. Just don't do it. You want to have a clean workspace. Stainless steel is nice and sanitary. Make sure everything's clean so you don't have any bacteria. You should wear gloves, protective eyewear, whatever you need to protect yourself from the lye, because it will burn really bad if it gets on your skin. I'm so used to working with it, I don't need to. I've never been burnt. So that's just how I make my soap. You do whatever you feel safe and necessary to do to protect your skin and your eyes and all. So I mixed up all of my oatmeal. I used my own whole organic oats into a food processor to make it into a powder form to add into my soap base once it's all mixed together. I've got all of my stuff here. My Lavender Essential Oil. I use extra virgin olive oil. Our home rendered pork lard. Extra virgin organic coconut oil. There's my lye that I ordered. And then I've got my handy dandy stick blender. I love my stick blender. And then I've also got all of my molds ready to go. I use this one here, so I get my nice square molds, and then I really like these, so I get cute little cupcake looking round soap molds. So when you do pour your soap into your molds, you want something that's easy to bend to push the soap out. You don't want anything hard like glass and stuff, because then it's really hard to get the molds out. And here I've got my lard, coconut oil, and olive oil already heating up. So I'm going to go ahead and start mixing in my lye here with my goat milk soap. So I just pour a little bit in at a time. I've got my spatula to just kind of mix it up, because it will start heating and melting all of the goat milk that's been frozen. And I've got my big stainless steel bowl here to combine everything, and then I'll mix it up with my stick blender until it starts to emulsify together. And once that happens, I will add in my oatmeal and my lavender essential oil. And you need to be careful when mixing the soap. You don't want it to get too thick and too hot before you pour it into your base, or it's really hard to get it into your molds the way you want it to. Some people like to use spoons and stuff to make little designs in the top and make it look nice with little swirls and whatnot. And then also, depending on what you're using when you're making your soap, like certain essential oils or certain things like the oatmeal or honey. Honey is, you know, sugar based, so that reacts with your lye and your oils, and it will heat up even more, such as cinnamon oil. So you will want to get your stuff mixed together and get it poured into your soap bases, and a lot of times you're going to have to put it in the freezer or the refrigerator so it doesn't make these lava tunnels in the middle, or it will kind of volcano up because of the heat, and it can kind of pour out of the soap base, and it just won't go through its saponification process properly. And when you go to cut it the next day, you'll have these spots in the center that are still kind of jelly-like, and it's not really pretty. I've had that happen to me, I think, twice. So you really have to be careful with what you're combining and how you do it. You know, the time limits of putting all those things in and mixing it. So just watch out for those things when you are making soap. So I'm about done mixing the lye in with my goat milk, and my stuff is melting pretty good. I try to put my oils and my butter and lard in to heat up a little time, probably 5 to 10 minutes before I start mixing my lye and my goat milk, just so my goat milk and lye isn't sitting too long, because you don't want to let it sit too long before combining everything and mixing it. So I'm going to get all this mixed together, get everything combined in the bowl with my stick blender, and I will come back to pour it into the molds. Alright, so I've got the oils mixed up. You want it to be clear. Well, you know, clear-ish. You don't want to see any kind of particles or anything still in there floating around that aren't completely melted, because that's just not going to make the process go well. So I'm going to start combining everything in here. I keep this paper towel down to catch anything, lye mainly, that might not make it into the bowl, just to protect all the other surfaces here in the house. So I always pour the oils first. When I started learning how to make soap, that's how they said was best to combine everything. So there's my oils. Here's my milk and lye mixture. Just scrape everything out there. I've got my silicone molds already set to go. I just kind of mix this a little bit with the spatula. And yeah, silicone is the best way to go when you're getting molds together for your soap. That's what I've always used and I like to use. So I got my stick blender here. I tap it a little bit to make sure there's no bubbles. And you want to mix until it's immersed together. See if I can hold it here so you can see. So there you can kind of see the oil and the milk is separated. So I'm just going to hold it here so you all can kind of see. Keep my stick blender on the high setting when mixing this. Works best. So you can see it's kind of coming together. So it probably takes a good 2 to 3 minutes for it to mix together. Sometimes it's quicker, sometimes it takes a little bit longer, it just depends. But it's all coming together pretty when it still seems watery and it's sloshing around, you know you still need to mix it more. When you can tell it's all combined together and it's starting to thicken up, it'll kind of bounce like jello and go back to its original state when you stop mixing. So mine looks like it's combined pretty good together, so I'm going to go ahead and add the Lavender Essential Oil. And also, when you're doing this, you don't want to stand directly over the bowl because the lye fumes, they can kind of get to you a little bit. And you just want to be in a well-ventilated area so you're not breathing in the fumes. So don't stand over top of the bowl. You can turn your fan on from your oven. That's helpful. I don't have issues with the fumes. I tend to stand away from it some, so I can't really smell it. But I'm doing a little more than a tablespoon of lavender essential oil. And then I'm going to reuse this spoon for the oatmeal. I'm doing the oatmeal last because that will make the soap base thicken up a lot quicker. And then once that happens, I gotta get it into the molds so I can still shape them the way I want. So mix this up some more. You want to make sure everything's mixed really, really well. You want to get the best results from your soap. This is a lot of product, a lot of time. It's taken me a while to get my recipe the way I want. My soap base is thickening up pretty good already, so I'm gonna go ahead and add the oatmeal. So it calls for 6 tablespoons. I don't normally do heavy rounds of the measurements. I 5. Like, I don't, a lot of people will do big rounded scoops. I do a little less than a whole 6 tablespoons. So I mix this with the spatula a little bit just so the stick blender will catch it. And then scrape that off. Tap this down and get to mixing some more. So I got everything mixed up well. Got the oatmeal mixed in, and I'm just pouring this straight into the molds. Looks kind of gooey right now, but it's turned out really well. I'm really happy with this. Thickened up a little quicker than I would have wanted, but it'll still do good. With as quickly as it did thicken up, I probably will put these molds, my loaf base mold, into the fridge just to help it because there's such a larger volume in the loaf mold. So, and then at the end, I'll kind of shape it how I want it and put some little pieces of oatmeal on the top just to make it nice and pretty, and that's my soap making process.